The Supreme Court today ruled that abortion is completely a private matter to be decided by mother and doctor in the first 3 months of pregnancy.
She's the woman once known only as Jane Roe.
We'll hear arguments in number 18, Roe against Wade.
The plaintiff in the court case that made abortion legal.
Here we go, Miss Norma.
But now she's having second thoughts.
I'm volunteering for Operation Rescue.
Tonight, one woman's journey, an interview with Norma McCorvey.
This is ABC News Nightline. Reporting from Washington, Ted Koppel.
As long as she was Jane Roe, the anonymous plaintiff in the landmark Roe v. Wade abortion rights case before the Supreme Court, she was a perfect symbol of the pro-choice movement. That's the way it usually is with symbols and icons and poster people. To a certain extent, the less we know about them, the better. The minute that Jane Roe emerged from anonymity in 1984 and revealed herself to be Norma McCorvey, the symbol developed complications. She was, it turned out, a drug addict and dealer, an alcoholic. She had dabbled in the occult. She is a lesbian. While she became a proponent of a woman's right to an abortion, and while she would work for several abortion clinics, Norma McCorvey clearly bridled at the feeling that the pro-choice movement's leadership was keeping her at arm's length. She saw herself as an historic icon of the movement, even if they preferred keeping their distance. She is, as you will hear later in this program, someone who seeks and needs a lot more positive recognition than she has received. And that, as Cokie Roberts now reports, may be the reason that Norma McCorvey, who clearly is still working out some of the details, is having second thoughts about abortion.
I baptize you in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit.
Hallelujah. This was the kind of conversion the pro-life movement has been praying for.
There she is!
This was the woman whose name is as familiar as any in the land, the embodiment of the pro-choice cause.
My name is Norma McCorvey, a.k.a. Jane Roe.
Jane Roe's case changed the country. It threw out dozens of state laws against abortion, and it started a monumental political debate that's still raging 22 years later. For the first 11 of those years, she remained anonymous. But when she came forward, Norma McCorvey became the emblem of the movement.
So she's here today coming out of hiding for this, and we appreciate her courage, don't we?
I used to have women that used to come up to me all the time and they'd say, oh Norma, I want to thank you. You know, if it hadn't been for you, I wouldn't have finished college, or if it hadn't been for you, I wouldn't have done this. You know, and I used to look at them and I would envy them because they got to choose. They had the right to choose. And I never had the right to choose.
And Norma McCorvey never had an abortion. She was 21 years old, not married, and pregnant with her third child at a time when abortion was illegal in Texas. She went to lawyer Sarah Weddington, who took the case all the way to the Supreme Court, where Warren Burger was presiding.
We'll hear arguments in number 18, Roe against Wade. Mrs. Weddington, you may proceed whenever you're ready.
By that time, Norma McCorvey's baby, who had been put up for adoption at birth, was 2 years old. Jane Roe's story was a terrible one. She said she had been gang raped, gotten pregnant, was desperate to get an abortion. That's what everyone believed, as long as Jane Roe remained anonymous. When she went public, she told a different story.
You were raped while you were in Georgia?
No, I wasn't.
You were not?
No, I wasn't.
Oh, so all those stories that are in the books and so forth are not true?
Yes, sir. Yes.
They're not true.
Right.
And it turned out that lying wasn't the only embarrassment this darling of the pro-choice forces presented. In her personal treatise published last year, Norma McCorvey told the story of her somewhat sordid life. Then she still adamantly supported abortion. Now she adds that to the list of sins she took with her into the baptismal pool.
I've cheated people out of money. I've sold drugs. I was an abusive alcoholic for many, many years. I've done a lot against his teachings, but I think the far greater sin that I did was to be the plaintiff in Roe versus Wade.
And we would encourage them to choose life, not death. Amen?
Amen. The man who brought Norma McCorvey to that view was the Reverend Flip Benham, a leader of the radical anti-abortion group Operation Rescue. He set up shop next door to the abortion clinic where Norma McCorvey worked and made enemies with her and then friends.
We want very much for her to be absolutely who God made her, not who we want her to be, not that we force ourselves on her, and she'll just be beautifully, supernaturally Norma.
Her long conversations with Benham turned into a religious conversion and to a change in her views on abortion, which seemed to be still evolving.
I still believe in a woman's right to choose a safe and legal abortion, but only in the first trimester. Anything past the first trimester, as it was handed down in Roe versus Wade, I consider killing.
Many people will wonder what impact this will have on the pro-choice movement. I don't think it should have any impact at all.
That was the chorus sung by activists in the abortion cause today.
I'm not really sure that there will be any impact on the pro-choice movement since she wasn't one of the leaders of the movement. It was her story and her situation that was the symbol for the movement, not Norma McCorvey herself.
It's not going to overturn the current regime of laws, but it's going to have a powerful impact on a lot of people that the woman whose case made abortion legal has changed her mind. It's going to have an educational impact, a personal impact on people. And if she decides to speak about it, an emotionally converting impact on some people.
And that's got the pro-choice forces worried.
The anti-choice movement will just have a field day with this and exploit it to for all it's worth.
Norma McCorvey is not a pro-life figurehead. She is a born-again Christian. She's a new creation.
But the new creation of Norma McCorvey that emerged from the baptismal waters just Monday night is already becoming a figurehead as she goes public once again with her story. She's likely to have traded her status as a symbol of one side of the abortion debate to that of an icon of the other. And both sides want her. As Jane Roe, Norma McCorvey is a different story. I'm Cokie Roberts for Nightline in Washington.
When we come back, an interview we did earlier today with Norma McCorvey. Ms. McCorvey, what happened? Why did you modify your views? You haven't totally changed them, have you?
Well, I've modified my religious path. I became a Christian Tuesday night. I was baptized here in Dallas.
Right.
By the Reverend Flip Benham. And now I've changed my position on choice.
Well, tell me about it. Because you and I were talking earlier this afternoon, and you explained to me, but put it in your own words. How do you feel about the notion of abortion now, a woman's right to choose?
Well, for years and years, I used to think that it was a woman's right to choose, period. But after working in 4 abortion clinics here in the Dallas area and learning a lot more, I started having inner conflicts with myself, Ted, and I really got extremely depressed when women would call into the clinics and want to make appointments for second trimester abortions.
Now, that's a distinction you made when you and I were talking on the phone earlier today also. second trimester abortions.
Yes,
How do
sir.
you feel about a woman's right to have an abortion in the first trimester?
Well, I think for some women it would be appropriate, you know, especially in the case of fetal deformity. If they find out early on in the pregnancy that their child or suspected child is going to be deformed or born without a brain stem or something like that, I think that the child should be aborted. I don't think it should be brought into the world.
Right.
I've seen too much, I've learned too much, and I really just honestly cannot deal with it anymore.
You realize that over the years, I mean, first anonymously, when you were just known as Jane Roe, and then later on, you became, certainly for some people, not all, but for some people, you became something of a symbol of a woman's right to choose. You must have given a great deal of thought over these last few weeks and months about the impact that you're going to have on the movement itself. Do you care?
I don't think that the movement is the issue here. I believe, Ted, that the issue here is that I have found a spiritual path that is concrete and with Jesus Christ, and I feel very comfortable with that. And I'm doing this for me. I'm not doing it for anyone else. I'm just watching out for my own self.
Let me turn the question around a little bit. What if now the right to life movement were to say, you see, now she has finally realized the error of her ways, although you still seem to have you know, some ambiguity of thinking toward abortion, but what if they tried to turn you into some kind of a symbol? What if they tried to use you now the way that some people feel you were used by the choice movement before?
We've already talked about that at great length, and there will not be any exploitation of my political status.
Who's we?
The right to life people.
They have spoken to you about this, or you, who approached whom here?
Well, it was just like a general conversation that Flip and I were having one morning in Operation Rescue's office.
I'm sorry, who's Flip?
Flip Brenham is the National Director of Operation Rescue Dallas.
And how did you come to meet him?
I met him years and years ago in front of the abortion clinics, of course, when they would come and protest in front of the clinics. And we were arch enemies. I mean, we never spoke a kind word to each other at all. And one morning he came over and he told me, he says, Norma, he says, do you know that God is pro-choice? And I looked at him and I said, what do you mean? And he said, well, he says, God is pro-choice, but he wants that everyone should choose life. And then he showed me the scripture, and he read it to me from the Bible. And that got me to thinking.
All right, I'll tell you what, let's take a short break, and then when you come back, maybe you can tell me how you agreed that you would not be used in any fashion by the pro-life movement, okay?
Okay.
We'll be back in just a moment. The assurance that you got that your change of attitude toward abortion, that is not going to be used by Operation Rescue or groups like that to further their cause?
I don't know. We were just talking in general one day in the office, and someone said something about exploitation of me, and I said, I won't have it. I said, I've already been exploited enough to last me a lifetime. I said, all I simply want to do is come in here and serve the Lord and do whatever I can to help prevent women to, I mean, I want to help women educate themselves around sex education. I would like to teach women that there's other alternatives to abortions.
Where are you working now?
I'm not working anywhere.
Where are you volunteering now?
I'm volunteering for Operation Rescue.
How can you do that and still, I mean, I come back to what you and I were talking about, and maybe you're still working a lot of these things through, but it seems to me that your thinking is still a wee bit confused, right? How can you be working for Operation Rescue and at the same time feel that it's all right for women to have an abortion in the first trimester under certain Under certain circumstances, I
I feel that it might be necessary.
But I mean, don't you see that there's a conflict here? I mean, Operation Rescue is, as best I understand it, categorically opposed to abortion.
They are. They're very opposed to abortion. But they know of my opinions. They know of my views. We've discussed them at great length, and they know that this is the transition that I'm going through now. And I'm sure that they're all out there praying for me that I will come full circle and say that abortion is no longer right for any woman, regardless.
I'm sorry, Norma, you said in passing a moment ago that you felt you had already been used too much. Used by whom? To what end?
Well, I've been shunned by quite a few of the national leaders in the pro-choice movement. People, to me, sometimes I really get this really strong hit that people think that I'm just like totally stupid, and I'm not. I mean, I've got brains and I have ideas, and I just don't really feel like they hear me. And I mean, I'm not that Vassar quality, you know. I'm a street kid. I'm an ex-alcoholic. I'm an ex-drug dealer. I'm an ex-drug addict, you know. So I mean, I wasn't their chosen one to be their special Jane Roe. But what I'm saying is that they just never gave me the respect that I thought that I deserved.
Let me try and present what might be, I mean, I doubt very much that you'll ever hear this in public from them, but what might be their point of view. Okay. You're not, and you've just sort of outlined the reasons yourself when you talk about your own background, you're not exactly the ideal role model, right?
Right.
So are you surprised that they didn't choose then to invite you to sort of put you up front and say, here's our poster gal?
Let me explain to you this other way, Ted. And back in 1969, when I lied and I told Sarah Weddington and Linda Coffey that I had been raped, I did that out of pure desperation. I wanted to have an abortion. I saved up my rent money. I went to an illegal abortion clinic here in Dallas, Texas. I saw the conditions of that clinic. I saw the dry blood on the floor. I saw all the roaches and all the other creepy things crawling around the floor. The only thing that stopped me was the fact that the clinic had been busted a week before that. That was the only thing that stopped me.
Yeah, I mean, ironically, you never had an abortion, did you? I mean,
no. No, sir, I never had an abortion.
You carried your child to full term.
Yes, sir, I did.
You wanted an abortion.
Yes, sir, I did.
And in a sense, you were angry at one point at Sarah Weddington for not letting you get one because it didn't suit their purposes at the time. They needed you to be pregnant, right?
They needed their plaintiff to be pregnant, is exactly right. But see, what really was the tail end of the whole shamil was the fact that when Sarah Weddington came out with her book, I don't know, 2 or 3 years ago, she told in her book that she had an abortion, and she went to Mexico. And when I sat across that table at Columbo's Pizza here in Dallas, Texas, and I asked her, I said, Sarah, do you know where I can go and get an abortion? And she said, no. Well, she lied to me. And she gets off easy by saying, well, she was an officer of the court and that she couldn't tell of illegal dealings when she had done the same damn thing herself. Why couldn't she have told me? So do you see the parallels here?
No, I understand. You feel you were used in one sense by these people for their purposes. Does it occur to you that you may also be being used now by the Operation Rescue people for their purposes?
No, sir. And I will not let them use me. I will have one more public appearance after this show tonight, and that will be Saturday. I will be introduced at the Ross Perot presidential candidate, whatever it's called, thing here in Dallas.
So you'll be introduced by the folks from Operation Rescue?
Yes, sir, I will.
But it doesn't occur to you that in some sense you may be being used. And I'm not being holier than thou here. I mean, as a journalist, I'm using you right now, too. It's an interesting story. But do you not feel that the Operation Rescue people want to get their mile of publicity out of this, too, for their point, to make their point?
When these people from Operation Rescue call me at home now. They don't say, hey, Norma, I wanted you to come down to the office, or hey, Norma, we're having a fundraiser. You know, you can get in and we're going to introduce you. We're going to acknowledge the fact that you're there, you know, but we don't want you to speak because you're a loose cannon, you know, and we don't want really loose cannons around, but we really do need you there because you're Jane Roe, and we don't have any other choice. So go figure.
You're saying that's the way you were used by the pro-choice movement?
Yes, sir.
Okay, well, Norma McCorvey, I wish you that peace and tranquility that you clearly want, and I thank you very much for being with us this evening.
Thank you very much, and I appreciate you.
Thank you. I'll be back in just a moment. She was conveniently pregnant at a time when those who were ready to take the issue to the Supreme Court needed a case to litigate. It would have been altogether better for her if she had remained anonymous. To be so visible and vulnerable in the middle of such a controversial issue can be a searing experience. It clearly has been for Norma McCorvey. As most of us do, she is looking for acceptance and love and a little peace and quiet. Perhaps, after this latest flare-up of attention, she will finally get it. That's our report for tonight. I'm Ted Koppel in Washington. For all of us here at ABC News, good night.
For information about Nightline on America Online, call 1-800-772-4222. For Nightline transcripts, call 1-800-ALL-NEWS.